With Alien Romanos, with Alien Romanos, with the new Alien movie coming out in August, and there is an official teaser trailer out right now, I thought now is a good time to start revisiting this franchise, starting with the 1979 classic Alien, which is about this space crew that comes out of stasis. They get a distress call to this planet. One of them finds a bunch of eggs, and when one of them hatches, it latches itself onto him and then gives birth to this alien creature that does evolve. The alien becomes more hostile and starts taking out all the crew members one by one. Now, real quick, let me give you a brief history on my experience with the franchise. Alien vs. Predator was really my first introduction to the Alien franchise, and by proxy, the Predator franchise. Then a sequel came out, and for some reason, I never got around to watching it, but having seen it a few years ago, I wish I never did, but we'll get to that later. So anyways, Prometheus came out when I was in college. I watched it when it came out on DVD and thought it was okay, but I was aware of the discourse that the film had. But then after that, somewhere else in my remaining years in college, I watched the original 4 Alien films on demand, and then I did see Alien Covenant in theaters. But overall, I always view this franchise the same way I view the Terminator franchise. Those first 2 are great films, they're classics, but then everything else after that have varying degrees of quality. But it's not completely like Terminator, because the Terminator sequels after the second film, its trajectory was like this. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me a third and fourth time, it's like, I'm done. But with the Alien sequels after the second film, we'll get there. But in terms of those first 2 Alien films, there's 2 types of people in the world. There's people that prefer Alien over Aliens, and people that prefer Aliens over Alien. Me, I'm more so for the latter, but that does not mean I think of Alien any less. That original Alien is a classic, but there are some things in it that just brings the movie just a little down for me. As much as I prefer Aliens, I do love and admire this film. It's like a slow whiskey. You just keep drinking it, and then eventually it's just gonna hit you like that. And I also like how just so much got done with this movie back in 1979. Before I get into the things I love about this movie, I do think this movie does have some pacing issues, because yes, this movie is slow. The movie does take a little while to get going, but I think that's part of why this movie is so special, because it was a bit of a slow burner, and that once it gets going, it starts getting going. I love the vibe of this movie, which is basically Star Wars, but just a little bit more darker, and it's a little bit more contained. We really only go to 2 locations. We're on the ship, and we're on the planet where the egg hatches. It makes for a more claustrophobic movie. I was really impressed with the effects of this movie, even for 1979 standards, because it basically used some of the same techniques as Star Wars, but it does it in its own unique way. But I gotta talk about the Nostromo, which is the ship that everybody is on. I just like how the movie starts out with just these slow shots of you seeing the ship and everything. And while it does add to the pacing of this movie, it does give you a sense of the geography of the ship, so that when shit hits the fan, you know where you are. I like how this ship is all powered by Mother, which is essentially an AI, and Mother is the reason why they get the distress call. I also like how this movie is essentially about everybody at first, but then once everybody just starts getting killed off, there's only one person left, which I will get into in a little bit. But it's very smart that they started out with everybody, because everybody, all the characters, all have their own distinct and unique character trait. But first, we're going to talk about the Kane, which is the first person that gets killed. But the circumstances on how he gets killed first is just very impressive, because he is the one that is in front of the egg that hatches, and the alien latches itself to him. And then that iconic scene where they're all sitting around, the chest burst scene, you know what I'm talking about, and he's just in pain, and it's just agonizing to look at. And then eventually, once his chest started cracking open, and just how they executed it. There's no sound at all. The practical imagery in it, and just the practical imagery of just this little ass alien popping out of your chest and then just disappearing into the dark. And played by the late John Hurt, rest in peace. He plays Kane, and yeah, I didn't even realize that was him. Then the next person that gets killed is Brad, and his little scream that he does when he gets killed, I don't know why, but that just always stuck with me. He's like, ah, ah, ah. I'm like, well, that sounded convincing, but he got killed trying to retrieve the cat. But at this point, the alien has grown bigger, and I'm going to get into the alien in a little bit, but it's called the Xenomorph. Then the next person that gets killed is Dallas, and This scene stood out to me more than all the other scenes in the movie because it's the one scene that I remember less, but it is also a bit hilarious because like he's somewhere in the ship and he's trying to get out and they're telling him like, yo, this alien is coming for you. You get out, get out. But then he ends up running into the alien and then how it just pops out of nowhere like, ah! That's how you do a jump scare. And so at this point, all is left is Ripley, Ash, Lambert, and Parker. Now Ash, played by Bilbo Baggins himself, the late Ian Holm, rest in peace, is actually an android and he got orders from Mother to basically go to this planet and try to get whatever intel he can on this alien, even at the expense of his crew members. Because as Mother said, they're all expendable, which is fucked up in hindsight. But Ripley, she finds out, and so now survival is the objective for the last three remaining. And real quick, can we just take a moment to appreciate that the last three survivors are two women and a black dude? I'm just saying, that was a bit progressive even for 1979 standards. But regardless, Parker and Lambert, they eventually get killed, and who's left? Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver, who a lot of people considered top three favorite strong female characters, along with Sarah Connor, Princess Leia, and I couldn't agree more. I think the jury's still out on who the fourth person would be, but they would definitely be Mount Rushmore of strong female characters, or just female characters in general. And my favorite moment of mine from Ella Ripley, at least in this movie, is when after Dallas is killed, now she's the next one in charge, and now she's pretty much got to pull herself together, take the initiative, and pull everybody together and be like, hey, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this, that. And Parker, shut up, get yourself together. Sigourney Weaver played this role excellently, and it would even get even better in the next movie. And I got to talk about the Xenomorph, which is one of my favorite alien designs in any movie, and I just like how they brought this alien to life, both with a person in costume. I'm not going to even try to pronounce his name, but rest in peace to this dude. I did not know that was a black man playing the Xenomorph in the original Alien, which is something that everybody should definitely know. Rest in peace and rest to power to him. He definitely brought this alien to life in such a practical way, and they even used some puppetry. But I'm also a fan of how Ridley Scott, who's the director of this movie, I totally forgot to mention that in the beginning, but I just like how he basically teases alien. They didn't show too much until we get to the big finale where you start to see just a little bit more of him, and even by then you don't see too much of him. They used very little and certain camera angles to basically show the fear of this creature. But Ellen Ripley is triumphant over the Xenomorph. She kills it. Both her and her cat survive. She goes back into stasis and goes home. This is one of those movies that either A, I wish I could go back in time and just sit in the theater and get everybody's reactions to this movie, or I could just erase my own memory in seeing this movie for the first time again. Because despite some pacing issues, which I can get over, I more than understand why this movie is a classic. I love revisiting it anytime I get the chance to. It gave us one of the best female characters ever put to cinema, one of the best alien creatures ever put in cinema. It's one of the best sci-fi horror movies ever made. Even though I'm not going to give this movie my highest rating, I'm still going to give Alien the hard eyes emoji.